morning. It's Monday, December 15th, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up on the show, a hostage crisis unfolds in Sydney, Australia, as a gunman waving an Arabic flag is holding an unknown number of people in a busy central cafe. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Rome to try to revive talks on Palestinian statehood. And later on in the show, racial controversy affects Apple's approach to its music. Good morning, I'm Meredith Ross. We begin with breaking news out of Sydney, Australia, where a hostage crisis is unfolding. A gunman who appears to be in his 40s has taken several people hostage in the busy central district of the city in a Lindt chocolate cafe. A number of hostages were seen facing out of the windows on the cafe with their hands up against the glass, and above some of them appeared to be a black flag with Arabic writing on it. Now, according to a police commissioner's statement made a short while ago, contact has been made with the gunman, but details so far have not been released to the media. Now, according to the latest reports, 5 hostages, one appeared to be an employee of the cafe, were able to flee out of the back door of the premises and are now being interviewed by police. And now joining us now from Sydney is journalist Gabby Weinbrecht. Good morning, Gabby. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Meredith.
Now, we understand that you are just 1 kilometer away from the cafe where this is taking place. What are you seeing, and what are the latest reports coming out of the area?
Well, look, Meredith, the city of Sydney, the central, is just it's a ghost city. There's no one other than police station allowed anywhere close to this area. And look, the recent news has just seen 2 female hostages managing to escape the Lindt Cafe, another 2 employees of the cafe just escaping the area. For the time being, these are the latest news from the last few minutes.
And we did see in those images possibly police officers were inside the cafe. Are they inside in the back area helping people get out? Do we know at this time what the situation is, the police officers on the premises?
Well, that's correct. We have seen 1 police officer coming out of this area. It is important to say that this cafe is the entrance of a very busy, tall building with several entrances. So we have seen the hostages escape from various and different doors, where 1 escaped through the fire door, 2 from the main entrance, and 2 other ones just came out of another door of the building, if that answers your question.
And we understand that other major parts of Sydney, as you mentioned, have been closed as well as a security precaution, the U.S. consulate and the Sydney Opera House, for instance. So this is just a major precaution that they're taking. What other areas are closed?
Oh, look, all the Jewish institutes in town were evacuated immediately. Even the offices of the New South Wales Prime Minister were evacuated, and the courts that are just very, very close by. Meredith, this cafe is situated just beside the Reserve Bank of Australia. It's in the really central district of business in Australia. 3 out of the 4 major banks have their headquarters just in that street. And so all the area has been basically evacuated. We're talking about thousands of people. There's traffic jams for hours now in the city because traffic has been stopped. The trains to the train station has stopped. And the famous Sydney Bridge has now for hours have been blocked. So basically the whole district of Sydney CBD has been evacuated in the last few hours.
And obviously, closer to when the event started unfolding, what was the atmosphere there? How were people reacting?
So look, this whole attack is happening 50 meters just in front of Channel 7 television station, sort of studios. So basically, the guys, the reporters and the journalists, the anchors saw the people, the hostages, raising their hands with the Islamic flags just in front of them in fear. So this whole basically event started and unfolded quite quickly once there was an understanding that was a gunman inside the shop. Because for a while there, for a minute or 2, they weren't positive whether the shop was closed or whether there's something happening inside, until one customer was trying to get inside the shop and saw a gunman inside it, realizing the electronic doors were closed.
Right. And Gabby, are there any, have any of the reasons behind possibly the motivations of this gunman been revealed yet?
No one knows yet, because there's just been the contact with this perpetrator has been made. No one knows if there's more than one gunman inside the cafe. And no one knows the motivation on whether they're related to the flags or to any type of political party. And no one knows for the time being who is this man.
Right, and it's possibly too early for speculation at this point. And finally, Gabby, what have police instructed civilians in the perimeter of the situation to do?
Well, basically, the police has instructed everyone to try and stay calm and just be patient because of the traffic jams coming out of the area, and also provided the hotline, the terror security national line, just in case people come across anything suspicious in these times. There was a real concern in the first few hours of this event that this, in fact, was just going to develop into multiple site events, and so for the first few hours there was more tension around the city and in other areas, but now it seems like just a waiting game, trying to figure out what's happening with the gunman and who he is, what he wants.
Right. Well, Gabby Weinberg, live from Sydney, Australia, thank you very much for speaking with us this morning.
Thanks, Meredith.
And now let's listen to a statement made by Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott earlier today.
The whole point of politically motivated violence is to scare people out of being themselves. Australia is a peaceful, open and generous society. Nothing should ever change that, and that's why I would urge all Australians today to go about their business as usual. Finally, this is a very disturbing incident. I can understand the concerns and anxieties of the Australian people at a time like this, but our thoughts and prayers must above all go out to the individuals who are caught up in this. I can think of almost nothing more distressing, more terrifying than to be caught up in such a situation, and our hearts go out to those people.
So just to summarize, there is a hostage situation in Sydney, Australia that is still unfolding, and one gunman is known to be holding these people hostage. We are still seeing pictures now of some people fleeing the scene. We do know that 5 people were able to escape the cafe. It is still unclear at this time what the motivations are of this individual, and we will be bringing you details as they unfold. And moving on now to our next topic. As we speak, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is traveling to Rome, where he is set to meet with the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. Ahead of his departure, Netanyahu rejected yesterday any talk of Israel being forced to withdraw from Jerusalem and the West Bank within 2 years, as proposed by a new Arab League-backed initiative to be submitted to the UN Security Council. Netanyahu added that such a withdrawal would, quote, bring Islamic extremists to the suburbs of Tel Aviv and to the heart of Jerusalem. We're joined now in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Good morning, Tal.
Good morning, Meredith.
And by I-24 News Middle East analyst Ali Waqed. Good morning, Ali. But before we take a look, let's take a look at the following report.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is set to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Rome Monday, with ongoing tensions between Israel and the Palestinian Authority on the agenda. The parley is expected to focus on a Palestinian UN initiative, which will be presented to the Security Council perhaps before the end of the year, and is meant to set a time frame for ending the occupation of the West Bank, with or without a peace deal. The initiative represents a diplomatic headache for the Obama administration, which is coming under heavy pressure to this time refrain from using its nearly traditional pro-Israeli veto.
We also stand against the possibility of a diplomatic assault. That is to say, an attempt to force upon us, through UN resolutions, withdrawals to the 1967 borders within a defined time frame of 2 years. This will bring the radical elements to the suburbs of Tel Aviv and to the heart of Jerusalem. We will not allow this.
Kerry may try to work out a compromise which could be more acceptable to Israel. One of the options is a French proposal which also sets a time frame, but refers to a final resolution of the conflict and not to the end of occupation.
Any unilateral action does not advance an agreement between us and the Palestinians, but only distances one.
The State Department noted Kerry would likely be speaking with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas as well in the coming days, not ruling out a possible meeting between the two. In any case, following the meeting with Netanyahu, Kerry will meet on Tuesday in London with Palestinian representatives, as well as Arab foreign ministers who have been pressuring the U.S. to support the Palestinian initiative, or at least avoid vetoing it. Many in Israel expect that a historic U.S. decision to refrain from a veto could help Prime Minister Netanyahu in the polls, though such a development could also be spun by the center-left parties as a diplomatic failure on his part. If the U.S. does decide to strike down the Palestinian initiative, this could complicate the White House's relations with the Arab states, which have gained critical importance recently in the context of the struggle with the Islamic State. Another option would be for Kerry to suggest a proposal unacceptable to both sides, thus at least remaining neutral. The decision made by Washington in this regard is likely to have a lasting effect on realities in the Middle East for the foreseeable future.
So, Tal, we do know now that Netanyahu is on his way to Rome. So what's on the agenda with his meeting with Kerry today?
Well, there's one thing on the agenda, and that's the big veto or the Palestinian UN Security Council bid. There might be other small things on the agenda. They might discuss the Iran talks. But the big question and the big diplomatic fallout that Kerry has been trying to salvage the U.S. from is the Palestinian statehood bid. The Israeli elections kind of caught the international community in a peculiar moment, because it was just as everyone was actually getting ready to move forward with initiatives that would pressure the Israeli government to go back to the negotiation table, or on the other hand, to make concessions to the Palestinians. We have, besides the Palestinian-Jordanian initiative, we also have a European drafted resolution, one that is led by France. It's a more moderate version of the Palestinian resolution. It calls for a 2-year timetable for a permanent agreement and not for an Israeli withdrawal. But in any case, that was just gaining momentum, and then came the election. So this kind of caught Europe and the U.S. in a big question mark. How do we act now? How is this going to influence our actions? And the American administration knows that any move by the U.S. at this time would influence the elections, and at least would be perceived as influencing the elections. So Kerry actually embarked on this trip over the weekend. He also met with his method of face-to-face diplomacy. So on Friday, he met with the French Foreign Minister, Laurent Fabius. Yesterday, he met with the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. Today, he'll be meeting Netanyahu, and tomorrow, he'll be meeting the Palestinian Saeb Erekat, and also a delegation of Arab foreign ministers. Kerry is trying to find some kind of solution to all of this. The solution, the emerging solution, seems to be some kind of an American resolution that will be put on the table, one that would outline the American positions about a final status agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. Nothing that we haven't heard before, but something that both the Palestinians and the Israelis would not be signing if they were there. And the big question is, how will the Palestinians be acting if the Americans put this draft resolution instead of theirs on the UN Security Council table?
Well, considering the Palestinian side, joining us on the phone now from Jerusalem is member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council, Dimitri Dilani. Thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
So now, as we've been discussing, there has been a lot of political upheaval within the Israeli diplomatic arena, but a leak from a recent meeting between PLO officials reveals that Yasser Abed-Rabo feels that President Abbas is undermining the draft resolution by rushing it. Now, can you tell us more about this meeting and what was said?
With regards to, it was only reports in one media source about what Abed-Rabo said. But it is obvious from yesterday's meeting that Abed-Rabo himself attended. He was there. That the leadership is waiting for the meeting between the Arab foreign ministers and the European ministers with John Kerry tomorrow, so as to go ahead and see what's going to come out of that. So as to go ahead and with the UN resolution on Wednesday. It depends on also the meeting that is going to take place in London with the Palestinian delegation and Secretary Kerry. I think there's much going on right now. The decision to go ahead with the resolution and other steps were taken already. The mechanism, or are these steps going to be taken all at the same time or in sequence, will be determined as a result of in the next few days, including what John Kerry is going to come out of his meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. But it is obvious that Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing government cannot go on forever, turning their back to the peace process, turning them back to the Palestinians, and continuing with their illegal settlement activity and crimes against Palestinians, especially in Jerusalem and Gaza.
And with regard to, again, what Mr. Rabo said, obviously, and what he felt was a private conversation, he criticized, again, Abbas's choice to, quote, rush the UN Security Council draft resolution. Is this a sentiment that is his alone, or are there also feelings of other people in the Palestinian Authority?
No, I don't think there are other people, because if those reports were true, again, I really don't.
Right.
We have better chance of getting the 9 votes in January, because Venezuela is coming in, and I think yes, we can. It's a better chance. But if you take a look at the whole political scene, timing is very important. And we want to go ahead with this step, and some people, most people, think that this is the right time, and we believe that John Kerry's meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu is the last chance for Benjamin Netanyahu to mend his way and bring back the state of Israel into the peace process towards a different future than the one Bennett, Lieberman, and himself were planning on.
Well, we're turning back here to studio. Dimitri, as you mentioned, the timing is all very interesting in this. Ali, why are the Palestinians pushing forward with this now, especially Abbas, with this UN resolution that some feel is too soon? Is it because of the elections? Is this just the timely moment?
Well, to tell you the truth, the Palestinians don't believe that there is a real difference between who will govern in Israel and who will rule in Israel. They know, what I've been told yesterday, that even if Herzog-Livni will be the couple that will win the election, the right-wing parties will not allow the Israeli government to progress in the peace process, and there is a serious, deep need to an international umbrella that will press the Israelis to go forward in this process of negotiations. This is why I don't think that this evening or Wednesday, as some Palestinians are talking about presenting the Palestinian initiative in the Security Council, is a deadline. The Palestinians opened a market to bargain, to discuss, to negotiate. They want to improve the European mentioned initiative that Tal just mentioned, a French one with the participation of Great Britain and Germany, and also the American resolution. I think that, as Dimitri said, at the end of the day, the Palestinians will try to pull their initiative to January so they can guarantee a majority in the Security Council, and still to see what will be the consequences of such an initiative on the Israeli elections. But the Palestinians don't really bet on the Israeli elections. They've been trying Olmert, Peres, Netanyahu, Barak, etc. And the comment of all these Israeli leaderships that there were no external pressure that the Palestinians are seeking so much this time. And this time the international community appears to understand that there is a place for an intervention in this process, and that leaving the stuff for the Israelis and the Palestinians will not reach an agreement. Now the question how the European and the Americans will collaborate with the Palestinians, this is the big question. It appears that for the moment, according to what we've been hearing by American diplomats in Jordan, in Cairo, and in Ramallah, that the American veto is not guaranteed, and the Palestinians don't want to lose this tension between Obama and Netanyahu, between Israel and the American administration, and to rush for an initiative that will embarrass the American. They want still to work with the American, so a new era will be marked, a new era that will not be characterized by a new American veto, but about an American approval or an American alternative initiative to the Palestinian one, but yet that clarifies that there should be a deadline, a 2 or 3 years deadline for negotiations.
But the Americans don't want to, are not very happy about confronting neither the Palestinians or the Israelis. The administration is very happy to avoid the confrontation with the Israeli government at this time. The U.S. knows that any confrontation with Netanyahu's government at the moment will could actually strengthen him in the polls. And one of the interesting things that's happening is actually that in many ways the Palestinians, as we speak, are playing into Netanyahu's hands. Why? Netanyahu wants this election campaign to be exactly on these issues, exactly about a diplomatic agenda, exactly about security agenda. He doesn't want it to be about the socio-economic agenda. And while this initiative brings back, Netanyahu is actually running away, taking a break from politics, and he has a chance to show his at least from his point of view, his proclaimed statementhood in diplomacy these days, and give that kind of point of view, something that he, at least his campaign, is trying to show as his big advantage compared to other candidates. So in many ways, the fact that the Palestinians are promoting this initiative now puts the issue on the agenda and helps Netanyahu divert the election agenda from agendas from issues that are less comfortable for him, like such as the socio-economic agenda.
This is the dilemma of the Palestinians and their friends, international community. Is this step of the Palestinians is influencing the elections in favor of Benjamin Netanyahu, or is it reflecting and deepening the isolation of the Israeli current government in the international community? And this is the way to influence the elections in showing the Israeli electors that Israel under Benjamin Netanyahu is more isolated than it was ever.
Interesting. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. It will be interesting to see how all of this unfolds, and especially with Kerry's meetings and all of his efforts, and the Israeli elections as well. Ali Waked, Dimitri Giuliani, who was on the phone with us earlier, and Tasha Lip, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And moving on to the next topic, Indian police have arrested a 24-year-old man, Mehdi Masroor Biswas, believed to be behind an influential pro-Islamic State Twitter account, which was followed by many jihadist fighters and which exposed Westerners to the group's recruiting efforts and propaganda. Still with us is I-24 News Middle East analyst Ali Waked. Thanks for being here, Ali, again. And from London, we are happy to be joined via Skype by researcher at the Quilliam Security Think Tank and longtime follower of the jihadist group's social media activity, Charlie Winter. Good morning, Charlie. Thank you for being with us.
Morning.
So now, Charlie, we'll begin with you. Was this arrest in India significant, and was this a major victory in the war against the Islamic State, or is there still a long way to go?
Well, I think it's significant in one way, but insignificant in another. I think that the overall effect that it'll have on Islamic State's social media operation, its ability to circulate news across the world, is going to be negligible. There are many, many more people who will fill Shami Witness's shoes. However, what is extremely important is the fact that security services now have access to Shami Witness's computer. They have access to his Twitter account, which they reactivated yesterday, and downloaded every tweet and reply that he had with anyone. And there will be security services across the world going through these right now. As well as that, we know that he spoke to prospective and current foreign fighters in Syria and Iraq. So we'll know, that security services will know from his direct messages, his private Twitter presence, more about who is there, what the picture looks like in that sense.
Mm-hmm. And how did the small group that he ran, how did they react to his outing?
Well, he didn't actually run a group. He was the most productive and the most prolific of a small clique of individuals who do constantly circulate news about Islamic State. There were a number of people who were very shaken. Some even actually deleted their Twitter accounts, but they've actually resurfaced now. I think a lot of these people are very obsessed and almost addicted to tweeting about Islamic State. So to actually give up their presence is quite a difficult thing for them to do, believe it or not.
And looking at the bigger picture in general, how has the Islamic State taken advantage of social media, and how successful have they been?
Well, by all accounts, they've been very successful. I mean, their social media operation is part of their propaganda machinery, and it's completely decentralized. So that means that they can alert a number of individuals to the fact that a new video is coming out or to new news. These people are always looking for the scoop, if you like. And that means that there's a very ready amount of people who can circulate to thousands of followers within minutes of something being released. And they do the legwork. They translate it, they circulate it to certain people, they send it to other people who can then circulate it to their circles. So it's a very sophisticated operation.
And I mean, how do they have access to social media? Are these individuals operating all over the world? And how do they operate from places like Syria where, I mean, I assume there are limits on the use of internet?
Well, yes, the individuals who tweet and spread messages from Syria and Iraq, they do so on a much smaller scale than people that we have in the West and the rest of the world who do the heftier legwork. I mean, we have some people who are tweeting nearly 500 tweets a day. They literally just sit at their desk and are constantly looking for the latest bit of news that will, A, allow them to spread Islamic State propaganda, and B, get more followers. I do think that there's a dual narrative here. One of someone who is a hardcore ideologue of Islamic State, and another person who's just addicted to social media.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, Charlie Winter there, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Now, Ali, do we know if this man was a member of the organization, or was he just an obsessed fan, as Charlie mentioned? Some people just get really obsessed with the Islamic State.
No, for the moment, we don't know if he was an obsessed fan or somebody who was recruited to the Islamic State. But as Mr. Winter said, like this young Indian, there are plenty of youngsters in the Arab world, in the Islamic world, who are volunteering. They are participating in the war without being physically in Syria and in Iraq, and they are supporting the Islamic State in this social media activity, which, as Charlie said, is very decentralized. And it is amazing how did the Islamic State identified who is so committed like this Indian young and others in other area in the world, and supplying them with the footages, with the videos coming from Syria and Iraq. And once we discussed in this studio how did Google and Facebook closed accounts of the Islamic State, but a couple of hours after there were tens and hundreds of accounts replacing the account that were closed. In my opinion, as Charlie said, this will be very significant if the security services in the world will succeed to reach the people who exchange stuff and materials with this Indian supporter of the Islamic State. But on the other hand, it won't stop the machinery of the Islamic State, both on the social media and on the ground.
It's really amazing to see how much headway they've really made with social media, with this type of a tool. And it's interesting that you say it sounds like this man, may have just been an obsessed fan, and then he got traction, and then he actually got in touch with the group because of how far he went with it. So it's really interesting to take a look at how they're utilizing social media as a tool. Ali Waqid, thank you very much for being here this morning. Now, coming up next, doctors may have found an efficient new cancer drug, but its cost leaves it out of reach for most people. But first, let's hear some more of this morning's headlines. Welcome back. Let's say hello and good morning to Ruchi Sinai, who joins us to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines. Ruchi.
Good morning, Meredith.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing very well this morning. What do you have for us?
Okay, well, let's go to Turkey.
Okay.
Our friends nearby and far away. There was a crackdown yesterday on newspapers in Turkey. As you can see, Turkish police raid newspaper, detain editor-in-chief, head of broadcasting, and a lot of people were detained in this incredible raid on several major newspapers. The reason for this crackdown, or these publicized attacks, which were broadcast on television, was twofold. One is that these people are suspected of being associates of a rival of Mr. Erdogan's, the president, and the other is that one of them, at least, is responsible for a soap opera set in a Kurdish part of Turkey where terrorists are working to undermine the regime.
Interesting.
So, yes. So, that's reason enough for arrest. And, of course, Turkey Turkey has a very bad reputation as being the biggest jailer of reporters and journalists in the world.
Really? That I did not know.
Yeah, one of the many, what shall we call them, brownie points for President Erdogan. Yes, he doesn't like criticism.
Yes,
so,
you do not want to be
no, you don't want to get on his wrong side. No. Okay, we now go to China.
Okay.
We have a report in the China Daily. The first time that China has ever marked the Nanjing massacre, which is one of the more horrible or most horrible atrocities of World War II, relatively little known in the West. Did you know, Meredith, that 10 million Chinese perished in World War II? Fighting the Japanese, and mostly the Japanese. 10 million. This is a figure we never hear. Anyway, the Nanjing massacre was perpetrated by Japanese troops who came into this large city and over 6 weeks basically murdered, raped, pillaged. Some 300,000 people at least are estimated to have died in those 6 weeks. And this, as I said, is a memorial was marking yesterday.
They commemorated earlier.
Why did they never commemorate it? It has to do with tense relations with Japan, basically, not wanting to antagonize.
They didn't want to piss them off.
They didn't want to piss them off, exactly, yes.
Okay.
Moving from China and next door to Korea.
Okay.
The Korean Times has a story about a campaign to educate Americans about wartime sex slavery. Again, part of the Japanese atrocities in World War II, the Japanese took Korean women as slaves, something like 200,000 perhaps.
As comfort women.
Comfort women, exactly. This story is about an exhibit underway in Washington at Catholic University, which is designed to basically highlight, put a spotlight on this terrible chapter in Japanese Korean history, and to come and say basically to the world, listen, this might have happened in World War II, but it's ongoing. Look at what's happening with Boko Haram in Nigeria, enslaving
Islamic
women.
State.
And sex trafficking, of course, all over the world. The Yazidis by the Islamic State, they just issued a manual on
how to rape women.
That
was just chilling.
The co-editor was Katzab, our ex-president.
Oh, no, come on.
Okay, well, this is okay, let's not relate this to Israeli Professor Friedman. We'll delete this comment.
Yeah.
All right, delete. So, we're staying in Korea. We have the Korean Herald, which tells us this really bizarre story.
Yeah, what was this about?
Nut rage.
This was unbelievable, this story.
Korean business is run by a bunch of big, wealthy families.
Right.
This lady, I'm not going to say her name because I probably mispronounce it, is the daughter of the chairman of Korean Airlines. The family owns the company too, and she was on a flight. She has a job in the airlines. Mm-hmm. She was on a flight, and she got really angry at the steward, at the flight attendant, who served her macadamia nuts in a package and not in a plate.
Right.
Well. So she made
I think angry is an understatement.
She made the plane turn around. They hadn't taken off yet or something. She made the plane turn around, go back to the terminal, and according to witness reports, she also made the steward kneel down and apologize to her in front of everybody. Of course,
it's just unbelievable behavior.
It is.
I mean, when you're a representative of an airline, this is the last kind of PR that you want.
Well, yeah, and I mean, for what? What did he do? I mean, he didn't serve her in a plate. So anyway, the long and the short of it is that he was kicked off the plane. She, when this came out, she was forced to resign all her jobs. She went to his home yesterday to apologize.
Did she kneel down?
Really?
She didn't kneel down. She went to his home to apologize. He wasn't home, so she left a note.
Okay. just like a UPS.
And this has created this whole, debate in Korea about, entitlement and, who you are, the big families and who do they think they are.
And people
so
just
on.
basically referring to, quote, brats of these families who can just behave however they want, turn an airplane around based on how nuts were served. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, incredible.
It's too much.
If we still have time,
we do.
Asharq al-Awsat, an Arabic and English language daily, tells this amazing story of these 5 veiled women with niqab and, they're completely covered up, traveling on a bus from Yemen to Saudi Arabia. Yemenite patrol comes on board. Something fishy about these ladies. They look at them through these, peepholes, and shooting starts. Turns out these 5 veiled ladies were Al-Qaeda operatives making their way to Saudi Arabia.
Were they men disguised?
They were men disguised.
Wow.
These are not women fighters. These are male Al-Qaeda fighters shot dead by these alert Yemenite
so a thwarted
soldiers.
attack.
They thwarted an attack.
We would say. Well, Ruti Sinai, thank you very much for this press review.
Sure.
And on to our next topic. For decades, cancer was seen as an unbeatable disease. Advances in medicine indicate that this is no longer necessarily the case. But today, a major hurdle facing cancer patients is that the drugs that have proven effective are extraordinarily expensive, meaning a cure is still out of reach for most people. One of those people is Roy Westler, a 42-year-old father of 2 who was diagnosed this year with an advanced brain tumor. We are joined in studio by Roy's sister, Galia Westler. Good morning, Galia. Thank you for being here. And we are also joined by the director of the Oncogenetics Unit at Sheba Medical Center, Professor Eitan Friedman. We have heard from you in the press review. Thank you very much for being here as well. But before we delve into the story, let's take a look at the next report that tells the story of this outstanding medicine and how it has saved the life of another patient.
The hospice center at Sheba Medical Center does not resemble an ordinary hospital ward. It looks more like a resort. Anything to ease the time of terminal cancer patients in the final weeks of their lives. It rarely, if ever, happens that patients from here walk out of the hospital alive. But the case of 20-year-old Sapir is exceptional. She was committed here 2 months ago following a 5-year battle with lymphoma, with little hope in sight.
Nothing helped. It always came back. At some point, I stopped fighting for myself.
Why?
Because my family is more important than me.
But it looks like Sapir, who walks around sucking a lollipop with morphine, a powerful pain-killing narcotic that eases her discomfort, is about to beat the brutal statistics. 2 months ago, she began receiving a new drug that, without exaggeration, has shown sensational results.
My body was riddled with metastatic tumors, but now there are no signs of the disease. A few months ago, I was hooked up to oxygen 24/7. After 3 treatments of the drug, I was walking around without it.
The treatment includes 2 drugs that have an active agent called anti-PD-1. Unlike other cancer treatments that try to kill the cancerous cells but also damage healthy cells, the new drugs don't attack the cells themselves but rather aid the body in attacking them, with nearly none of the side effects of the existing oncological drugs. But the cost of the drug is prohibitive, even in comparison to the most expensive existing medicines. To have a chance to live, Sapir requires 2 treatments a month over the next 2 years, costing 8 million shekels, roughly $2.3 million.
The price is astronomical. Even here, no one's heard of such an expensive drug.
So, Galia, tell us more about your brother, Roy. Sorry, we said father of 2, father of 3, as we do know he has a newborn baby. What was he doing with his life before he was diagnosed with this cancer?
So, Roy Westler, my older brother, he has studied cinema and television in Sapir, and prior to that, he served in the military in the paratroopers regiment. And Roy has been he is very talented, bright person, extremely humble. And Roy has been doing a lot of documentary films. He's won a lot of awards. And recently he's also been a teacher for high school kids, recently in the Kfar Yarok. I don't know if some of the audience have heard about the donations that they were able to raise in the Kfar Yarok only from his students. An amazing gesture that they've done.
It is an incredible gesture. It just shows how much they appreciate him as a teacher and as a person. Now tell us more about the diagnosis.
So what had happened, it started about 4 months ago. Myself, I live in Vancouver in British Columbia in Canada. And one morning I wake up and as usual, I call my mom and dad. And my dad told me on the phone, he said, listen, Galia, Roy, obviously in Israel, Roy has been, he's in a hospital and he has a tumor in his brain. That's all he said. And of course, the first reaction was shock. Yeah. All of us, until today, we are extremely shocked because it has struck us suddenly. There were no signs before that. The only thing that you could say is that Roy has lost a lot of weight in the past year. It was a bit noticeable, but nobody thinks it's actually cancer.
And when people lose weight, you think it's a good thing. You don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yes, exactly.
So it was a slow progression.
If they mean to lose weight, losing weight in and by itself is a bad sign. It's a non-specific sign, usually of a cancerous disease.
It's a natural progression. But let's get back to what your family has been doing. We understand. Tell us more about the drug that you were trying to get your brother to receive, and how much that costs, and what your family is doing to help raise money for this.
Yes, of course. So I'll just finish the first thought was that when he first was diagnosed, he was actually in a very, very severe state. It had gotten to a situation where he has hydrocephalus, which means water in the brain, and he was in a condition where he had to be operated so that they can take the water out and take him out of immediate danger. But the reason why we're now in a situation where this drug called Keytruda is our last resort, because Roy has been through 30 sessions of radiation, and he also is now doing chemotherapy, to be more exact, Timodal treatment, and his situation has deteriorated because he's been doing MRIs ever since, and the MRI shows that the tumors have grown, and he now has 7 tumors.
Wow.
And the prognosis of the doctors is extremely bad. And so when we did our own research, to be more exact, my younger brother Eldad did his own research, and he found out about the Keytruda and about Sapir's story, which is amazing. And there has been other stories as well. We thought, well, we're not going to be sitting on the fence. We have to do something. And, I did my own, we posted on Facebook and through friends that we know. And in a very short video that I was posting as well, I said, cancer hits so many millions of people. And so if we're able to try this for my brother, we can try this for everyone. And that's why it's really important to get the donations and to get the Keytruda drug, because it's very, very expensive.
Exactly. It's tens of thousands of dollars a month. Now, Professor Friedman, why are these drugs so expensive?
It's very simple. Drug companies spend like $1 billion for each drug that they come out to the market, and in order to get one drug to the market, they have to test 5,000 of them, and it's 10 years down the road. They need to make up. I'm not justifying that, but this is the rationale. They need to make up for the amount of money that they spent on investing the drug and proving that it is effective, and it's a long and tedious pathway. I mean, you come up with drugs that work in cell culture on mice and at first trial, and then it turns out that it does absolutely nothing, and they have to check it all out. So this is why it is that expensive for every new drug in the market, and later on when the patent expires, then it becomes less expensive, but it's still a hefty investment of money in terms of the patient. Now, in order for the companies, for the HMOs, for the health ministry and the health system to be covering a drug, it needs to be proven as effective in treating that particular cancer type. And that has not been shown with Keytruda in that specific tumor. It is a very, very rational, it's very innovative way of attacking the cancer. And basically what this drug does, it inhibits the inhibition exerted by the tumor cells into the cells of the immune system, the body's immune system. So this drug says you are already in the tumor. These immune cells. So please attack the tumor cells without attacking the non-tumor cells in the brain. So this is why there's a lot less side effects. It's been very successful in Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's been very successful in melanoma, in renal cancer, in head and neck tumors. Very few stories in terms of glioblastoma.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time. It is
sorry.
very interesting now just to hear how this works. But can you just quickly, Galia, just tell us what viewers can do to help raise awareness for the cause very quickly?
So what they can do is they can very simply just Google Kav L'Chaim and donate to Roy Westler's campaign.
Okay.
I can also give the phone number if that's okay. It's 03-925.
We actually have it on the screen there. But thank you very much, both of you, for being here. Professor Friedman and Galia, we wish you friendly all the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, more of the news. Good morning and welcome back to the Morning Edition. The United Nations members have reached a breakthrough agreement on how countries should tackle climate change. About 190 nations agreed on the building blocks of a new style global deal due in 2015 to combat climate change. The delegates have approved a framework for setting national pledges to be submitted to a summit next year. To further discuss this, we are joined in studio by Haaretz environmental journalist Safir Rinat. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
But first, let's take a look at the next report that recaps the latest about this historical agreement.
It took longer than expected and happened in overtime, but the UN members who participated in the Lima Climate Change Conference finally reached an agreement.
It seems to me, and I'm sure that we are all ready to take on the challenge of approving this document. And if that is the case, and I don't hear any objection, the text is approved.
The document calls for an ambitious agreement in 2015 that reflects the different responsibilities and respective capabilities of each nation and urges developed countries to provide financial support to vulnerable developing countries. Reaching the agreement was not an easy task, and up until the last moment, it was uncertain whether it could be achieved as the Chinese representative clashed with the American one and refused to sign the paper.
We take the view that the current draft project needs to be amended further in order to reflect the differences between the developed and developing countries.
Despite the obstacles, the conference ended successfully. However, not everybody was satisfied.
This is an incredibly weak text. The parties have just clapped through something that is going to lead to all voluntary submissions of information. And the big picture is, when they're done, it's going to be very hard to know if we're actually able to avoid dangerous climate change or not.
Terms like global warming and the greenhouse effect may sound strange to many, but the truth is these issues affect every one of us. The Lima Conference may be a small step toward a much cleaner and healthier world. But some think the damage that has been done is irreversible and there is little that can be done to save our planet.
So, Tzafir, can we be optimistic coming out of this conference? Or is not yet?
Well, if you look at it from the UN perspective, we might be optimistic because they made a progress in the long and tedious way in which they're trying to advance. But I think if we look at reality on the ground, we still don't have enough reasons to be optimistic. We don't know what the countries what kind of commitments countries will take, and how, to what extent they will be able to implement those commitments.
Mm-hmm. And on a certain level, it's also individuals in each country making the conscious effort to change. So it's they face a lot of difficulties now trying to implement this in their home countries. And we're also joined now via Skype by Sam Daniels from Israel Greenpeace, who has a lot to say about this agreement. Hi, Sam. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Sam, as we understand, your feeling is that the world as a whole is talking about achievements, but you say not many achievements have actually been made with regard to climate change.
Yes, I would agree with the comment that's just been made. Basically, what this conference was doing was laying down the groundwork for an agreement next year in Paris, but a lot of the groundwork is still not finished. So I wouldn't call this a groundbreaking agreement at all. And a lot of the groundwork which needs to be done to really get an agreement in Paris still has to happen.
So what's your take on the outcome of the summit in Lima then?
There were a couple of positive. There was some progress on a couple of issues. They did put together a potential draft agreement for next year. And one of the options in that agreement was the phasing out of fossil fuels in 2050. Now, that's one of the options being put forward for next year. But we're not sure that will happen. Mm-hmm. Some of the really key things which need to happen, for instance, countries to start making 5-year commitments. It has not happened. So it could be that countries make commitments until 2030 and get locked into low ambitions for the next 15 years. And this is 15 years. We can't wait to have countries with low ambitions and low targets. Mm-hmm. What we need is much clearer targets. We need them to happen much sooner, and that needs to happen. And really, a lot of work needs to happen now the next 12 months to get an agreement in Paris in 2015.
Right. I mean, urgency really does seem to be the key word here. We'll get back to you in a minute, Sam. But Safir, according to the agreement, as we understand, each country will have to cut their carbon emissions by more than half of what they are now. Is this realistic?
No, it is not, and of course we have to look at the different kind of countries. The principle is called common but differentiated responsibility, which means that the poor countries will not be able to carry far-reaching commitments. Right. So most of the burden will still fall on the shoulders of the rich countries, and of course some of them are reluctant to do that. Let's take, for example, United States. If you look at it from the political context, it's very difficult to see the Republicans agreeing to any significant changes in the way Americans' economy is run. And we have to understand, to really make progress in climate change, we have to make very, very significant structural changes in economy and in politics. And just declaring something is not enough. It will have to come with really significant changes. And I'm not sure that societies and economies are prepared for those kind of changes.
Mm-hmm. Especially, as you mentioned, poorer countries that may not even have the infrastructure and the budget to do so. But Sam, you mentioned Paris. Do you see next year's conference in Paris as a beacon of hope, or do you fear that it won't bear any real fruit when it comes to the core issues?
Well, there is hope, and we have to have hope. I think that's really important. I think we have to believe that we can make change, and that's why we're all here. Again, in this conference in Lima, a lot of the difficult decisions have been put off again into the future, and it's something which keeps happening in these climate talks. And Paris really is key that doesn't happen again. We've seen it happen many times in the past, most notably in Copenhagen, 2009. But Paris really is key, and we have a huge effort on everyone's part now to really make sure we get an agreement next year that is good. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, because we are running out of time.
Right, we are running out of time. And Safir, do you think that a possible agreement could actually make a difference in Paris as well?
Well, I think we shouldn't underestimate the fact that for the first time countries have agreed to cut emissions, all of them. Mm-hmm. This is an important step. But the Paris Agreement will have to be much more ambitious, and I'm really not very optimistic about the chances of achieving such an agreement, which will really be binding, feasible, and politically possible to carry out.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been a really interesting discussion, gentlemen. Safir and Sam Daniels, thank you very much for being here today. And we are joined now by Tal Heinrich for the Viral Spiral. That is the web review. Tal, what do you have for us?
Hello.
Good morning.
I'm optimistic, but I don't know about my items. I can't. No guarantee.
Okay. Let's start no guarantee that they will help climate change. Okay.
Yes. Let's start with the first one that will for sure not help it. John Lennon killer. His wife, his name is Mark Chapman, and his wife just gave a first ever interview.
Really?
She revealed that she gets to visit him in jail every year. They get 44 hours in a certain period of uniting.
Right.
We'll say it
we
like
can
this.
Understand that.
Yes. But except for spending some romantic time and satisfying their needs, they also make homemade pizzas. They meet in a certain, like a room, a caravan, and they make pizzas, and they also watch Wheel of Fortune TV repeats.
That is like...
Yes, if you weren't in jail for
weird.
this, you should be in jail for watching the Wheel of Fortune repeats.
Exactly.
This is what I thought.
Exactly.
So her name is Gloria Hiroko Chapman. She's 63-year-old, and according to her, they met when she was 26. They got married when she was 26. They met through work. Exactly, they got married 18 months before he assassinated. Yes.
Okay, because I was going to ask if I wasn't aware of their history. I was going to ask if she was one of those women who kind of becomes fixated on an inmate and has this whole fantasy about marrying an inmate. You know, these stories.
She just met him before, and she stayed with him. But some interesting quotes she gave in this interview is that she was accused that she knew about his plan, the murder plan before. But now she says he totally conceived me, that he had got rid of the gun, but I was totally deceived, so I don't feel guilty.
But doesn't she feel angry? I mean,
she's so weird. You gotta listen to what she has to say. She added, if Mark could say anything to Joan and Yoko now, he would say, I'm sorry I caused such pain. I hope you have forgiven me. And if it's not enough for you, she even invited Paul McCartney to visit her husband in jail.
I'm sure he will not be doing that anytime soon, as he did call him the jerk of all jerks live on an interview.
She invited him.
Okay, so next item.
Next item. All right, guys, I don't know about your snacking habits, but I do know mine, and I'm not sure that the vending machine of the future can satisfy my snacking needs. And so according to the Mirror, to the Telegraph and the Mirror UK website, this is the next generation of the vending machine. It's called Loose X2, and it will have a facial recognition technology.
No way.
Which means that it has, like you see in this picture, they have a TV screen. You can touch it. It recognizes your face. It can greet you. Hello, Meredith. What would you like me to vend you?
That's really creepy.
But the creepy part is that it can refuse to vend you a certain product based on your diet, your purchase history, and...
Okay, so wait, is this actually like a healthy thing? Is this like trying to promote good eating?
I think you can code it to be healthy. Let's say if it's a school, you can say that, children are not allowed to have cigarettes, although the vending machine contains, cigarettes, so the staff can have cigarettes, but... Or if it's a certain gym, you can, based on your diet, maybe if you're diabetic, so you're not supposed to have a certain sugary thing. When
it comes to vending machines, though, it's kind of all about that guilty pleasure, and you just kind of want that Snickers bar. You don't want to be told no.
I was like, why did it have to be designed according to purchase history? Because I want the same product, every time. I just want the same product.
Or you might just feel like something new. You never know. I don't know if that will succeed, but good luck.
And I also don't know about your social media habits. However, I think many of our viewers that go on Facebook, and sometimes you see a certain post, that I just lost my pet just died, or something like this, and you want to like it, but you don't want to like it, right? Because it feels wrong. It's the wrong sort of empathy to show, because I like it that your pet is...
Exactly.
So now, according to the Daily Mail, Facebook is considering adding a dislike button.
I think that's a really good idea.
Yes, according to Mark Zuckerberg, he admitted that he's working on it, but it is very unlikely to be called dislike. Because, as he said in California, in the headquarters, we need to figure out the right way to do it so the bottom ends up being a force for good, not a force for bad.
Right, because it's all about, especially with social media, they want it to be a positive experience and encourage people to share. And if you get a lot of dislikes on your post, you may think that no one likes you and you won't post anymore. So what else can you call it?
It's supposed to be a dislike, but yes. And the interesting thing about it, that Facebook actually conducted some research, when do people are going to use this dislike button, and it's interesting. Those posts that brag about dieting and exercising, so people don't like to see other people,
they hate
showing
that.
off. I just finished running 5K, blah blah.
Yeah, those really get to me.
It's morning.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And another story that is connected to social media is a pretty disturbing story about an 11-year-old girl. Her name is Alexis Waller.
I heard about this.
You heard about it?
I did.
She stole $10,000 from her grandmother's socks drawer, and she took a taxi halfway across the country to meet a certain 16-year-old boy she met online. She chatted with him. She wanted to see him. So you're more aware of the distances in the United States. So she took the money in Arkansas, and she wanted to reach to Jacksonville, Florida.
Wow, that's a long way.
And the funny thing about this, that the taxi driver didn't feel that something's wrong, 11-year-old girl, she wants to go halfway. The only thing he asked,
in her pocket.
So the only thing he asked her is, do you have the money?
That's actually, he should be, I don't know, he should be charged for something.
And she says, I said, I need to go to Jacksonville, Florida. She told the newspaper, and then he's like, do you have the money? And I'm like, yes.
That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, you think, who is this guy? Does he think, does she have parents? And why does she have all this money?
She has the money.
Oh.
Maybe she didn't look, I mean, I saw her photo. She doesn't look like 11, but.
Well, I do understand the sentiment. Young love can take you to crazy places, but yeah, I'm happy she at least is safe, because she could have gotten in a car with a different kind of cab driver who knows what would have happened. So thankfully, the moral of the story is at least she's safe.
And I don't think she got to meet the guy eventually.
Well.
I think somebody reported that.
And that's another safety issue, Like, who knows if this is even a real 16-year-old? Exactly.
That's too much.
Exactly. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have. But Tal, thank you very much for all these very interesting items. And coming up next, racial controversy affects Apple's approach to its music. But first, let's hear some more of this morning's headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. We're joined in studio now by Wine at America's journalist, Ronnie Staff. Good morning, Ronnie.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. Very good today. What do you have for us?
Well, we have some interesting and on the news type of entertainment news to start with. So Apple has removed music that has racial supremacy themed messages after an investigation of Southern Poverty Law Center that have been working through the database of both Amazon, Spotify, and Apple, and they have found different bands and groups that have super white power
okay, so
subjects.
This in particular, this kind of language.
Yes,
okay.
This one in particular.
Like white supremacist,
and
yeah.
Exactly, and the problem is there's also listens also bots, so they are even more exposed to more music that maybe they don't know enough about, and maybe they should know a little bit more. So it created a big controversy, but Apple have removed the songs. The spokesman confirmed that the music was removed. This investigation uncovered 54 racist bans on the service, and it's reporting.
That seems like a lot.
Yeah, it's and that's as much as they were able to find going through the websites of different racist websites. So it's not even everything that's on the web. But good news is that almost 30 of those links are already removed from the web. Music related, I mean.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not completely removed from the web.
Right.
So we're starting towards creating some sort of a change.
Yes, exactly. Well, kudos to Apple for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is still controversy because Amazon and Spotify did not remove the songs quite yet. And spokesman of SPLC, Heidi Birch, she is saying Apple is doing the right thing by preventing iTunes from being used as a recruitment tool for white supremacists. Amazon and other online trailers that continue to sell this music need to realize that they are providing a powerful platform for extremists to reach young people with messages that advocate hate and violence against African Americans, Jews, and all others.
Right.
And this comes at a really, really tight time in the States and in around the world in general. But this weekend in the States, we have Justice for All protest after.
That's exactly what I was thinking with this entire
yes,
story.
after the killing of, literally the killing of Eric Ray Gardner and Michael Brown, two unarmed African American guys that were in some sort of an arrest
scenario.
Yes, were both killed, and people are out on the streets saying that justice has no color.
Right.
And this comes at a really interesting time. So I think it's really important to keep on trying to notice those things through the web. We all say that the web is a place that we can't really control. Everything can be up in the web.
You can't censor everything.
But at the same time, I think it's super important that when people are trying to investigate those moments, that's when those companies step in.
So Apple is trying to make a difference. Good news.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Christian Bale. Let's talk about him.
Christian Bale. There's just this moment with Christian Bale. So it looks like Christian Bale wants to be a web phenomena in the past couple of days. We're not sure what's going on with Christian Bale, but that's what's happening. It started from him saying that he felt jealous that Ben Affleck is taking over Batman. He he confessed that he was never asked to return as Batman, which
so he took kind of like an ego hit to this.
And it went viral over the web, and then he was like, "Oh, it's not viral enough. Let me do just a little bit more of that." So so in another interview with Entertainment Weekly, he revealed that he believes that the ending of his movie was not a dream. At the end of the movie, you see Alfred, and he is seeing Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle in a cafe, and that's after he's crying over his tomb, thinking that Batman is dead, Bruce Wayne is dead. And we never know if it's a dream or not. And this movie is by the director that have been working through this type of movies for a while. It's Christopher Nolan. He created Inception. It's all of these, like, what is going on at the end?
You're not really sure what's going on, like you said, whether it's a dream or not. So he kind of ruined it for everyone then.
Well, it's been a while, so it's fine. I think it's okay. But I'm just not sure why he started creating all of these very weird interviews, but that's okay. I guess Christian Bale needs just a little bit of attention. It's the holidays. Maybe he was not invited for enough Christmas parties, and he needed a moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Nothing fulfills your appetite like Hollywood attention.
I guess. Yeah. So and he went viral. So good job.
Good job.
You got your Christmas present, I guess.
Yeah.
And good for you.
Exactly. Okay, Christian Bale, have a good Christmas.
Yeah. Apparently.
Okay, so on to the next item.
So we have Serial. Serial is, I would say, the world's most popular podcasts. It is based on a real-life mystery from 1999. When there was a murder mystery that was never revealed. We're not sure what happened there. Teenager Hee Min Lee was murdered in 1999, was found a couple of weeks later, and no one really knows what's going on. I mean, someone was convicted. Adnan Said, he was her ex-boyfriend and her classmate. And he was convicted at the age of 19. Now, the thing is that the prosecution only rely on the testimony of one person. In the podcast, his name is Jay. That's all we know about him. And throughout the trial, he kept on changing his story, and there were all these things that came in and out. So this podcast went crazy. The fan base of this podcast is crazy. Now, it's a podcast, so there isn't any imagery, and it's about to end after 12 episode, and now fan base is going crazy with the photos over the web. They created, like, I mean they produced an active subform. They searched carefully and systematically through the Best Buy, which is where supposedly the incident has started after, and later on he strangled her in her car. But in Best Buy was the moment that he started strangling her. And so they are searching through Best Buy, trying to realize what's going on. They're creating maps of the whole.
It's amazing to hear what fans do for these things. It's incredible.
The hashtags is going crazy. One of the hashtags is Team Adnan, saying that maybe Adnan is not the one that is to blame here. And the advocate of Team Adnan, called Rabia Chanduri, is actually the person who contacted Sarah Koenig at the beginning the creator of the podcast, and that's how this podcast serial actually started.
Really interesting. I didn't know a thing about this. I'm going to have to check that out.
You
It
have to
sounds
check
really
that out.
Addictive and very suspenseful. It sounds good.
Very different.
Check out
just
serial.
Yeah, and I mean podcasts. That's something that we really don't have these days. It's all about images, and our time expansion doesn't really allow us to do anything that doesn't stick us to the screen. So that's a really interesting moment. And on the other hand, you see how the fans, all they need now is the photos and the hashtags and the forums. It keeps on going there, regardless
Really
of the fact that
interesting.
it
Well, be
started.
sure to check out that podcast, Ronnie. So thank
Absolutely.
you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And now we're joined in studio also by the Sports Magazine host, Jonathan Regev. Jonathan, what's the latest in sports news? Thanks for being here.
Hi, good morning. 2024 Olympics. I know it's a long time ago. We know 2016 going to be held in Rio, 2020 in Tokyo, but the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, convened last week in Monaco, and there were many changes introduced. Some of them may point to the 2024 Olympic host city. Who will it be? Here's the answer in the story by Michael Friedman.
Paris' bid for the 2024 Olympics has been launched. The recent IOC reforms stick perfectly to the Parisian possibilities, an opportunity that the supporters of the City of Lights have not let go and that the IOC takes very seriously.
If France decides to present a Paris bid, it will be a very strong candidate.
New steps by the Olympic Committee President, Thomas Bach, as part of the 2020 agenda, are in line in Paris. Several months of reflection ended at the last session of the IOC Monaco.
Today is decision day. It's the day when, after a debate of more than 1 year, and with a great participation, we can change from discussion mode to a decision mode.
40 in number, these changes aim to ease the application process and reduce the cost of the Games. The IOC seems to have learned from the last Olympics in Sochi, which gave the impression of an incomprehensible debauchery of money in these times of fiscal crisis.
The IOC will contribute to the costs of the presentations of the candidate cities, which will be strictly limited. It will limit costs in a very meaningful way.
It will not be necessary to build an Olympic park to host the competition. The IOC has henceforth encouraged the use of existing and temporary installation equipment, a philosophy that makes obsolete the model of the Olympic Park that was acclaimed since the Sydney Games in 2000 and until those in London 2012. The 2024 Paris project has nothing to do with the 2012 project that was supposed to be built around the Olympic Park. Today, one pole of this magnitude would be almost impossible to be inserted in Paris. The French capital could then reuse the Stade de France, Paris-Bercy, Roland-Garros, or the Velodrome in Saint-Quentin. Another small revolution, the IOC reversed a principle that was not impossible to change in theory. The governing body now makes possible the joint organization of games across multiple cities or even 2 countries.
We will give the same opportunity to organize some events under special conditions in other cities.
A decision which rejoices French sports leaders even if the subject is sensitive. The issue is challenging for Paris because the mayor, Anne Hidalgo, is not in favor of hosting it in her city. However, the country is hopeful.
I'm not for hasty decisions under the influence of emotion, but it's the reason that this is what we also ask our fellow citizens.
If a candidate, Paris could therefore rely on other local authorities. The IOC will make its decision in the summer of 2017. Paris has not hosted the Olympics since 1924, but the city appears to be ready.
Okay, so Paris is in the running. What is about 100 years after it hosted its last one.
Pretty much, and that's also for in their favor. They can say, well, let's host it as the 100th anniversary of the previous Olympics. And of course, they're not the only candidates. We've heard of a joint candidacy by Berlin and Hamburg, perhaps, because as we've heard, you can have joint candidacies. Now, the United States.
What does that mean, joint candidacies?
2 cities, not just London or Beijing or Athens or Sydney, as we've seen in previous Olympics, but 2 cities together. The purpose here is to cut the costs on one city, because having this in one city is too much. And not only that, building a whole Olympic park, building everything from scratch, like they did in Sochi, that brings the bill to about $50 billion. That's insane. That is insane. Therefore, first, 2 cities can run together, cut the cost for each city. Second, the IOC wants the Olympics to be held perhaps in cities that already have a vast sports infrastructure, like Paris, for example, like we've heard. There's a Saint-Denis Stadium, there's the Parc des Princes, there's the Roland Garros, there's Paris-Bercy, many installations, so you don't have to build everything from zero. Of course, the decision will only be taken in 2 years. We've heard of maybe American cities bidding. Qatar, yes, of course, they bid for everything these days. So it's 2 years for the decision. Paris, absolutely a very big candidate.
2 years before the decision is made, they start their campaigns?
Way before, actually. Way
before. Really? Before. I didn't realize how involved that is.
You have to it's a lot of politics, a lot of convincing machine, and that has been going on for a while. Just in 2 years, the convention in which the host city of the 2024 Olympics will be held, but the wheels are already in motion for a long time now.
Well, my vote's for Paris. I really like that, catch line 100 years later.
A lot of people would. Not the mayor, as we've heard, but a lot of other people would.
I think they have a good chance. So before we wrap up, Kobe Bryant reached a milestone?
Yes, he's the number 3 scorer in NBA's history. He scored, here we're seeing the free throw. Usually a free throw in the middle of the second quarter is not that important, but this hoop means he passed Michael Jordan. He now has passed Michael Jordan, believe it or not. He now has 32,310 points. Only Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Karl Malone are ahead of him. I don't think he will pass them because just to pass Karl Malone, he needs 4,600 points approximately. That takes in Kobe Bryant's pace. That's about 200 games.
How many years do you think he has left before he retires?
Well, rumors, Lakers general manager said he thinks Kobe Bryant will retire at the end of next year. That means even if they make it to the playoffs, which at the moment seems will not happen, but even if they will, that means 150 games. I don't see Kobe Bryant going past number 3, but number 3 past Michael Jordan. That is exceptional.
Besides the number, beating Michael Jordan at anything.
Coming from a Celtics fan saying that something the Lakers are doing is exceptional. How hard it is for me.
It's difficult for you to
Yes. Don't score anymore, Mr. Bryant. Don't make me do this again.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan, for being here with the latest of the sports updates. And that's it for this morning. Visit us on the web or on our Facebook page. And don't forget to join us again tomorrow morning to start your day off right. Have a good day.